Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pop Talk session. This is your hired, finding and training your best team. Now, I'm Jim Lawson. I'm manager of outreach development at ABC, the American Board for Certification, and I'll be moderating today's session. Now, today's continuing education course focuses on insights and tips on recruitment and retention success. Before we dive into, we have a few programming notes. First of all, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A, so feel free to share your questions in the Q&A box throughout the discussion. Please go ahead and put those in as something pops into your mind. Now, this is a second in a series of 3 Pop Talks. This series is worth 3.75 Category 1 business credits, or 1.25 credits per session. So be sure to go ahead and take the quiz after the course for the continuing education credits, and I'll remind you at the end of our session here today. With that, I would like to, and it's my honor to introduce you to our experts. We have 2 experts with us today. Leslie Sisson, first of all. Leslie is the founder, vice president, and general manager of O&P Insight. Now, Leslie is a certified orthotic and mastectomy fitter and received the Sam E. Hammontree Business Education Award in 2018. She helps organizations achieve the dual goals of providing excellent patient care and maintaining healthy operations. Now, our second guest expert is Jeff Brandt. Jeff is the Chief Executive Officer of Brandt Ventures, Strategic Advisor to Impulse Technologies, and is the founder of Ability Prosthetics and Orthotics. Jeff is a certified prosthetist orthotist, and his work has helped lead to advancements in outcome measures, including inpatient care delivery and community-based adaptive programs. He has served on the board of American Orthotic and Prosthetic Association, AOPA, and is the advisory board to and member of 2 of the O&P Masters programs. So we'd like to thank you both. We're so happy to have you both, our speakers here today and our experts. Thank you for joining us in the discussion. I will now turn it over to Leslie, our first speaker. Leslie, please go right ahead.
Thanks so much, Jim. I'm really excited to be part of the second Pop Talk this month, and really excited to talk about this, about people. Really, we are a profession and a business of people for people. We serve people, and I just wanted to, my passion for the profession really is about the people that we serve and the employees that we have and the colleagues that we get to work with. So hiring the right people and supporting their development isn't just about technical skills. It's about fostering a workplace that they can thrive and that they can develop their professional skills. So we can advance that slide. That's me. We can advance again. You already introduced me. My great graphics team did a great job on the slide there. So really identifying the right candidates. So identifying what you need, who is it in your organization? What area are you trying to fill? And then the recruitment part of it, there are so many great areas to recruit. And Jeff and I'm sure we'll be talking about this, but we also hear a lot that businesses are struggling finding candidates. So using talent organizations or being connected on social media, LinkedIn. I was just at the Academy meeting, and one of my clients and owners of a practice was there, and he said, "I'm not on this LinkedIn thing. What is this?" And I said, "Well, you need to be on it," because he was struggling finding candidates and residents. And he met a young clinician that said, "Well, are you on LinkedIn?" He said, I see you on Instagram and I follow you on Instagram, your business, but are you on LinkedIn?" And he wasn't. So we helped him get his business and him personally set up on LinkedIn. So that part of connecting with our profession is very important. But identifying the right candidates, it's crucial to find individuals that not only bring technical skills, but they bring problem-solving skills. They bring a patient-centered mindset. Technical is very important, clinically, as well as even administratively. That's where most of my time is spent, is in the administrative part, the revenue cycle management, all of that. But I also work a lot with clinicians and even technicians. In the past, I did own a clinic with my husband, and my youngest son is a CPO as well. So I understand the need to hire the right people and the value of the right cultural fit in your clinic, not just in any O&P clinic, but in your clinic. And then balancing experience and potential. I think it's really important to have experienced staff, but also newcomers to the profession so that you are passing down that experience. Jeff, I can see you smiling. I know that you have experienced this as well. Do you have anything to add?
And I love your third bullet. I think it is a dance around the third bullet, because we have interviewed people before where they're greener clinically, but my, do they have all of the other attributes. And you think to yourself, well, they're ambitious and they have great time management skills. They speak clearly, they present clearly, they're compassionate, they're empathetic, patient-centered, but they just haven't seen enough people and been in enough scenarios. So yeah, agreed.
And I've spoken to enough business owners who like to bring in the younger practitioners, and so they can, in a very positive way, mold them into their business and how they would like them to be working with them.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And I think that the newcomers or, younger generation, they also bring in innovation and they bring in digital technical skills, and that they can actually teach those of us that are a little bit older some skills about software and things like that that we didn't have to use 30 years ago when I started in this business. So we can go to the next slide. So this is one of my biggest passions, is onboarding and training. Onboarding and training are different. Onboarding is getting you into your business, how you do things, HR, your payroll system, things like that, and basic onboarding into O&P. And then really training best practices are so very important. So encouraging and then ongoing training. So encouraging employees to stay current with industry trends. I just had a phone call this morning and somebody was surprised that they needed to put the KX modifier on all prosthetics now. And that's been out several months and they didn't know why their claims were being denied. So staying up, offering ongoing training, supporting ABC certification. I believe that care extenders and fitters and assistants are going to be very, very valuable, and currently are, but will continue to be very valuable at care extenders with our CPOs. And so supporting folks getting their ABC certification in any area that they can, providing opportunities for workshop attendance like this, for conferences, and really staying in the forefront of best practices and innovation, and encouraging employees to set expectations, to be very clear about their expectations of their role, but then ensuring that leadership is very clear about expectations, having written roles and responsibilities, having a standard operating procedure that's not just the one that sits on the shelf and only comes out when the ABC surveyor comes out or Medicare comes to but it's really a living and breathing document that gets updated, that employees have a say in what's in there. So having shadowing opportunities, mentorships. If you're a small organization, build relationships with other practices. Maybe you don't want to build it with the people down the street, but maybe when you meet them at the academy meeting or at one of your EHR meetings, is building that mentorship and being able to ask those questions. Anything you guys would like to add there?
Not just one thing, and thank you for mentioning the support staff and certified support teams. We're finding that a lot of businesses are really utilizing that, being the staff being certified by ABC, the fitters, the assistants, the technicians, and such. And we're finding a lot of practices are, like I said, are really utilizing that. It can be very cost effective as well.
It can. I think just having a very structured plan for that, and defining roles and responsibilities so that you're ensuring that patients are getting taken care of by ABC standards, as well as just ethical standards. But I think that expanding the role is very important, and supporting the CPO and the care for that. And administratively, making sure that they have what they need, that they know how to use the tools that they have, that you're using the tools, and that you have, as leaders, know how to use the tools that you have, EHR, your clearinghouses, any portals that you can get into, making it as efficient as possible, and listening to your people and what they need in those areas. We can go to that next slide. So ongoing professional development. I think this now more than ever is very important. I hear the newcomers, they're saying, what professional development do you have? How are you going to invest in me as your employee? And so certainly we already talked about encouraging ABC certification, and continuing education is very important. Supporting team members in the conferences. I think keeping them aligned and engaged, cross-training. If somebody's out, especially if you're a small team, if somebody doesn't know how to intake a patient and your front desk person's gone, that at least have it written down so that you know how to do it. And encouraging them with those career growth opportunities is very important, and that's what they need, and they want that feedback. They want to know where they're going and the roadmap to get there. We can go to the next slide. So building a positive workplace culture. We hear about workplace. Oh,
back one slide. Yeah.
Is that okay?
There we go.
Okay, perfect. We hear a lot about workplace culture, and sometimes defining that and really understanding what that means. There's many books about it. Go read if you need help with that. But I think that ensuring that your employees know who to talk to when they have a problem, when they have an idea, where they can share those ideas, the feedback. Employees on my team, so there's 18 of us on my team, and we all work remotely, which has a challenge in itself, because we can't stop by each other's desk and say, hey, how's it going? Or we can't hear the conversations that they're having, and oh, hey, I dealt with that, let me share this with you. We don't get to do that, which is when I grew up in O&P, that's how I learned, was sitting next to Renee or Susan next to me. And those were really my coworkers' names. And that's how I learned, was by hearing how they handled a patient issue or an insurance problem or something like that. So, and I know that even O&P practices, a lot of their administrative team are remote. So ensuring that you have that constant feedback, sharing concerns, sharing wins, not just concerns, but making sure that you can share those wins. Recognizing and rewarding team members is very important. That in order for them to feel heard and to be recognized, you need to figure out what that means to them. For some people, it's money, but some people it's not. For some people, it might be an extra day off. It might just be accolades privately or publicly. Some people don't want to be called out publicly, but if you just stop by their office and say, wow, I noticed that you did this, that is so very important to them. So really knowing them and being able to speak into their need and what they need to be recognized for. Certainly everybody talks about bonuses. How can I make more money? How can I get bonus? I think that the bonus program should be very transparent. And if the company is not doing well, then they can't give bonuses. Even though you did a great job and you may have met your KPIs, if the company's not profitable, they're not able to share in that bonus. So make sure that I think that the bonus program should be very transparent. Work-life balance is very important, and ensuring that you're listening to your people, and if they're having a problem, helping support them, having employee assistance programs, and encouraging them to take care of themselves is very important. Regular check-ins, one-on-ones, as well as team check-ins are very important. At our practice, every Friday morning from 8 to 9, we had a team meeting, and each employee got to facilitate that meeting, and we alternated it, and they got to make up the agenda. Other people could add to it, but everybody had a voice in those meetings.
If I may throw this in, Leslie, I cannot emphasize enough the power of praise that someone gives you. Bonuses are wonderful. Not every business can do that. We understand that, but
Right.
just a word from a manager, from a director, or some sort, or even a fellow co-employee, team member, getting that word of acclamation and hearing that praise just carries so much weight. It truly does. It gives, for me personally, it gives me that boost to, all right, what can I do better now? How can I do more?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jeff, do you have something to add? I see your smile.
Yeah, I think I would just say echo that as far as giving all levels of staff opportunities to contribute. Everybody wants to be seen, everybody needs to be seen and heard, and I think that's the opportunity to demonstrate, that particular role or that person's value to the organization, so that it's not just, we kind of grew up in more of a, it might be recognized more locally in a practice, but generally the feel for me anyways, what early on was, practitioners more valuable than X, right? And it was always like, really? Like, I don't know that I see it that way. I think you could have all the practitioners you want running around seeing patients, but if there's no one there to greet the patient, that kind of doesn't work either. So, yeah, allowing everybody an opportunity like that to be a part of the bigger mission, and have a contribution, and then be praised when it's done really well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. We can go to the next slide. So retention strategies, all what we've already been talking about is so very important, but having a clear path for them. And sometimes your expectations change. When I first started in the business, I had toddlers, I had little kids, and I needed something different than maybe I did when they were then in junior high and high school. And my employer worked with me and worked with my schedule. My husband and I were employed by the same employer in the same offices, and so we had to balance that part of our life. Now we're empty nesters; things are very different, and I travel a lot, which I didn't do before. So as we grow in our profession and in our personal lives, sometimes our expectations change and the expectations of our employer change. So ensuring that as we grow, that we're continuing to communicate both as an employer and as an employee what the expectations are and the needs of the business and the employee are. So I think really knowing your team and meeting where they are right now, and where they want to go. And I think also knowing yourself as a leader. Jeff and I talked about this a little bit when we were preparing for this, but if you're an introvert and maybe you have extroverted employees and they need direct communication, you sometimes have to get out of your norm and go meet them where they are and not just where you are. And I will tell you that I struggle with that. So because I am the introverted leader, and especially working with a remote team, I have to be very intentional about connecting with them. And I don't always do a great job of that. Certainly competitive salaries, workplace flexibility. I think that is, I'm hearing huge, hey, I want to work 4/10s, or I want to job share, things like that. So those of us that have been in the field a long time or just are older, that's new to us. Like, okay, how do we do that? How can we be successful as a business, but also give our employees what we need? And Jeff just mentioned this, really creating a mission-driven culture that keeps employees engaged and that they see their part in the success of our patients, which if our patients are successful, our businesses are successful. We can go to the next one. Role of leadership, we've sprinkled this in throughout these slides. Really, our strong leadership is what helps us succeed. And understanding yourself, understanding that your leadership brings such value, and then helping to build up new leaders, because someday we're not going to be here and we need new leaders. So encouraging collaboration. Also, when something doesn't feel right in a situation, go talk about it. Hey, this doesn't feel right. This feels funny. Help me understand what's going on here. And a lot of times they'll open up then, but if they're not going to come bring it to you, so you need to make sure that you're checking in, that you're bringing it to them, and that's the conflict resolution potentially. And then have fun. Have an environment that is joyful, that you're having fun, even through tough stuff, but ensure that you're encouraging one another. And for some leaders, that's difficult. For some, it's easy. And understand what fun means to each of your employees, because some of them may like jokes and they may like kidding around, and some of them, they may not like that. So knowing your employees is very important. And I think that was the last slide. That's where you can contact me if you want to contact me. So thank you so much for letting me share that. And
Very good, Leslie. Thank you. Thank you. Good, great information. Great information. Jeff, you're up to bat. Let me turn it over to you now.
Wonderful. Well, thanks. Again, grateful just to be asked to be part of this. And hopefully I'm in a position to offer some insights, and you can pull a few pearls of wisdom, as they say, out of some of the things we say. Yeah, so in thinking about this, my perspective has largely been that of starting an O&P practice in 2004, one office. That was me, myself, and I. And we grew over 17 years to 14 locations. And through that, you can imagine you get a front row seat to all of these topics, good and bad. And I think that at different points in the evolution of the practice or the business, you handle things differently, and you grow and you learn, and you understand how to handle a little, evolve and change these processes as you go. So I would say to Leslie, thanks for teeing these up absolutely perfectly, and I'll try to add some additional here. But when you're talking about clinical staff and residents, just kind of coming at this from a clinical perspective, in the beginning, you're looking for people. Can they do the job, right? Are they a CPO? Do they have a license? If they need a license, where'd they go to school? You're fielding recommendations from those folks. And then they kind of, get into the practice or the organization. And then that's when you really kind of on the clock get to figure out whether they're actually a good cultural fit, and can they perform the clinical duties. And you really start to learn that through that process. I don't want to call it trial and error, but it's your best effort with what you know at the time. You can have a decent amount of success, but you also start to learn, pretty quickly that as you grow and you probably get beyond 7 to 10 people in an organization, there starts to become, I used to call it like cross relationships. So it's not just 7 or 10 people reporting to you anymore. There's 7 to 10 people that are also having cross conversations around expectations, procedures, workflow, things like this. So by and large, I think innately, we just underestimate that need, or probably respond more slowly to needing to have onboarding processes or more objectivity within the organization. Maybe we don't think as much about repeatable processes, because we think, oh, like, I'm the best interviewer ever. I'm a CPO. I know exactly how to hire people. And maybe you don't. I mean, maybe you're really good at inspiring, and maybe you're really good at coaching, or maybe you're really good at maintaining a relationship with the schools. But then it should be handed over to another group of folks, like maybe regional managers, who would be actually managing those practitioners, to evaluate things like chemistry and clinical skills and needs. So again, I don't think you can overestimate it. It often takes a little bit of time, I think, to get to the point where your perspective then then allows you to appreciate what those processes and providing support that Leslie referenced, and really repeatable processes, coming up with onboarding manuals, coming up with the point that we used to hire, we had a residency program, and I can't tell you how many residents we brought on that we never even bothered to talk to the residency supervisors as to what their strengths and weaknesses were. Did they even want a resident shadowing? And and those, I think we all would agree, the more formal responsibilities around that residency supervisor have gotten more structured and more teeth to reporting in recent years, and that's a good thing. And so again, those mentors don't need to be per se teachers, but it certainly is good to have a clear conversation with that part of your staff about what's really required, as you're over here bringing on resident after resident. And I also think being good stewards of the residency and even clinical staff. Not everyone that you ever hire or bring on is going to stay with your practice forever. Probably nor should they. But at the same time, we always said leave a practitioner or resident better than you found them, and I think that's important to be good stewards of the profession that way and be upstanding. If we always used to say, better to invest and train in your people and they leave, right? And then they take a piece of your practice with them to maybe make somebody else improved. Or if you don't invest in your staff and they stay, that's also not a great situation either, because you have now essentially stagnancy in the organization. So and again, offering, we touched on it with Leslie's comments around offering continuing education. My experiences were always, you need to put time and effort into making continuing education more accessible for your staff. There are plenty of opportunities now for virtual and online. That wasn't as much the case when our culture was being formed at Ability. We would do as many as 4 times a year offsite, essentially clinical practitioner meetings, we would call them, clinical staff meetings, and we would invest that day or 2 days in an in-company, think of it as a mini AOPA or a mini Hanger live type of event, where we could communicate and disseminate information at the same time. And I will point out that we found that very valuable, that it kind of squelched speculation across the company, like, hey, are we using this product, or are we able to call, involve this resource? Because we would have covered that at a clinical staff meeting, so much like a hospital would have a surgical staff meeting or a medical staff meeting. These are great opportunities to check the pulse of the practice and stave things off before they become molehills, if you will. Next slide. Yeah, and so in thinking about how recruiting is now, and admittedly I haven't done it for a couple years, but certainly had my hand in it for a long time, and I think it may have been as simple as who you knew, who you went to school with, and which ad was in the back of one of the various magazines, right? And maybe even a bulletin board at a show, right? But we all know these access points, or the way we learn of people, is very different. And Leslie touched on it at the beginning with LinkedIn, and I think using a recruiter, and I think building your organization's profile with a recruiter. We used to spend a ton of time. I always say it's great to prepare and spend time with people when you don't have to spend time with them, because it makes the moment then that there is something more urgent, makes it a heck of a lot more efficient. And so we used to spend time with a recruiter to build a profile, and the recruiter really started to understand the types of people that might fit better at ability or in certain geographic areas. I think this is another area that you can and should be very honest with people about, why they're interested in a certain geographic region. I think much to the work-life balance, you can kid yourself that someone wants to come to this location and be there for 5 or 10 years, or you can just ask them straight up, what makes you interested in this region? Oh, my in-laws are in the now we'll be an hour away from the office, and so it's perfect for us. And I think that's a step in the right direction for success for that practitioner and the patients they're seeing. So because anytime you're bringing someone on, you'd love for them to have continuity with your patients. Site visits are hugely important. We used to compensate, pay for the plane ticket, pay for the, somehow try to offset the visit. I was shocked at the number of colleagues that I would talk to that would just say to practitioners, "Hey, I'm really interested in you, but you have to pay to come visit me for a day." Okay, like, well, what can I have to demonstrate some interest too, some committed interest. So we used to try to, as often as we could, get people in for a day. And while you can't certainly decide everything, it's a mix. It gives time for other practitioners and staff to interact with that candidate. And it gives you time just, to spend sharing about expectations and the cultural fit, whether they'd be a cultural fit. And then also community opportunities. I'm sure this was done on one-off bases in the past, years ago. I know certainly when I applied for my first practitioner position, I never asked one iota about what the company did as far as paying it forward or giving back or opportunities to, be more socially active. But this is something I know that is important. And I think that, as a company leader, you're being observed. And I think, say what you do what you say kind of approach. And I think that as far as we move into retention here, I mean, I think as far as having community opportunities and giving back where you can help as a practitioner, as an employee of the organization, to participate with that very patient population that you're helping in a social way is exciting to people. It's invigorating, and it's inspiring. It can be challenging to come to work day in and day out. But if you have we used to say this, if you're involved with some of these things on the fringe of your day to day, that's really where the impact can take root, and it leads to innovation and other things that we can do to help our patients. Next slide. And yeah, Leslie, see, you got this. What motivates? I mean, forever it was, well, sure, people want to make more money. That's great. Or they want to be bonused. But yeah, motivating someone sometimes, many times, is simply asking them what's important to them. And that's as simple as that. The owner operators having a responsibility. And again, I don't want to be misunderstood in this bullet. Yes, you need a practitioner that's capable and that's going to excel at seeing patients and driving, high outcomes. But I think also, owners and operators have a responsibility to perform as well and create value. And what we learned was, when you create that value and you work hard at that, you're creating a job position role within that organization that's then more coveted. So the folks that are there tend to sort of not protect, but they're mindful that they have a nice role, and they want to keep promoting that and being champions of that. So it's kind of one of those things, once you kind of tip the cart in favor of good culture and value creation that you mine it and keep it that way. We used to do simple things. One of them was Wi-Fi, right? When the internet was becoming more widespread in the mid 2000, 05, 06, we used to offer us a small reimbursement for at-home internet service, because it was our expectation that notes would be getting dictated and things like this, right? And people used to say to us, well, the only time I could really catch up would be later at night at home when it's quiet or something. And we said, well, okay, so what can we do to help that? And we can pay for part of your home internet. And so that was, people were thrilled about that. So um, and I also think work environment and facilities, I'll just touch on that for a second. We used to people used to tease me about natural light in the facilities, but look, when we looked for real estate, we always looked for places that were not dimly lit and that had natural light, or that we could funnel light into the workspace. I was not at that workspace 40 hours a week, but staff was, and it's really important that they had a fresh, clean environment that they felt excited and proud of when patients came in to see them. And then just again around retention, soft touches. Leslie mentioned this, the being deliberate. We used to write handwritten thank you cards to employees if we saw a good deed being performed. I used to send handwritten birthday cards to all of our staff. Again, only takes a minute, but it starts to become its own little tradition, and people look forward to that kind of gesture. And it, honestly, as a leader, it forces you to spend, if you're attentive to it, it makes you spend a few minutes thinking about that person as an individual, and being able to write something and convey something that's genuine and authentic about being part of the team and helping the organization. As far as retaining staff, we made it very known that we were early adopters. And while you're not going to get this necessarily behavior from everyone, we did want a reputation of being a place that could try different things, try different approaches, and have a support system to fail, if you will. And that wasn't going to blow the numbers for the quarter or something like that if someone tried something new. And then we mentioned it earlier too about transferring that knowledge. Oftentimes we had a more experienced staff would help open a new location, and we'd mix that with a more youthful staff or greener staff, so that we could have good transfer of best practices and extend the culture, if you will, to that next office. So while the decorations or things in the office may be a little different, at least the workflow and the back end was functioning in the same manner to try to get people what they needed. I don't think I have another slide, do I? I think I'm done.
Jeff and Leslie, you both have made some really, really wonderful points. All in all, this is a job. This is a job that you're going to be working in, so it's a job. But more than that, it's a career. We're talking about what you two have said so nicely. It's a career, and it's something you spend a lot of time with in your life, in your personal life. And so this is your professional life, but you spend a lot of time that talking about having the meetings that you do within your businesses. That makes you feel like a team member. It makes you feel like something successful. Supporting your team and the soft touches that you both were talking about for retention and recruitment. If I was being recruited, I would go in and I'd see that this type of work is done in business, saying, hey, this looks like a winning team. This looks like some place that I would like to be part of. So thank you both for setting that up very, very well. We're going to move into an area now of some questions from our attendees from listening. So for those of you who still have questions, please feel free to go ahead to the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. And I'm going to start with pulling up. We have some excellent questions here. Let me go ahead and start this. Nathan has asked, and this is for both of you, how do you introduce a workplace change to set a new standards or improve maybe long established in a workplace culture?
You want to take that?
So yeah. So yeah, what I would say to that is, I mean, this is getting at change management perhaps, and I think small bites are better. And I think also, depending on what the idea is, or the need for transition or change, or the increasing of a standard, where's the idea coming from, and is it being brought to the practice by the patients, as a standard or a process improvement that could happen? Is it coming from the practitioners? Or is it coming kind of top down from leadership? Hey, we all got around the table and decided this would be a great idea, and then everybody doesn't like it. So I think the best way to approach this is understanding where the idea is coming from, and then thinking about the stakeholder groups that it affects or is intending to affect. And then I think you have to set out small measurable steps, keyword being measurable. And you have to set a plan to say, look, if we're going to try to do X better, then let's try to be 15% better by the fall, by September. And if we meet that or exceed it before, then we can change the metric, right? But I also think that it's the people in the organization that are responsible for that change, or like affecting it, actually carrying it out. They have to be given the opportunity to report on it and refine the process and have input. Just simply announcing to people there's a new process, it's just put the time in the front end, make sure you have the why well defined, and how it's going to benefit the organization, the patient, etc. And then go from there.
Very good. I have another question here. Bonnie asks, what is the best way to connect with students for future recruitment? In-person events or specific social media? What do you think about that? Leslie, would you like to give
Oh,
us your
just
thoughts?
better qualified at that, but I mean, I think probably in Cope and going to uh the different schools and asking those program directors. But Jeff,
Yeah.
clinically, you're probably more astute at the student area.
Yes, I would say, if not you, someone in your organization, whoever has a more of a robust relationship with either their alma mater, or maybe it's just a school in the area where you're practicing, but didn't attend. It's okay. There's 15 programs. They're always looking for speakers. They're always looking for someone to bring content that's informative. And so there's certainly opportunities. The times that I have talked to students, the first thing I start off by saying is, here's my LinkedIn. Make sure you follow me, or connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to spend whatever amount of time you want asking me career questions, or things like that. So I think that's one of the best ways, is just to put yourself out there and um, offer up an opportunity to help out at a school.
And I will tell you from my experience, those students are so hungry to network with the professionals in this profession. So open yourself up and they will be there with you. William asked this question, in terms of longevity of employment, is it best to find and grow your own internal talent, or is it best to locate and recruit?
Yes.
Good answer.
I think both. I really do. I think you will have individuals that are in your employment, and you guys, 32 years ago, I started off at a front desk at a small orthotics company. And I remember calling a patient saying, whatever we made for you is ready and I need to schedule an appointment. I had no clue. So I am the epitome of grow your own talent, because and a career that can happen because of that. and then I have great people on my team that I've looked outside, obviously my organization, because I built it from the ground up. And networking and just getting to know people. I really think it's both. Just like having, experienced people and having people that are newcomers that are bringing innovation and new ideas to your practice. So, Jeff, you want to?
Yeah. No, I think it's right, and I think it's expectations. I think as you're evaluating that candidate for whatever role, it's if you feel like they're not as coachable, maybe they fit a certain role that you're needing to be filled, right? But again, they're both rewarding. I mean, I just think it comes back to cultural and expectations, and what's expected to work at that organization, and if that's coming from someone who's a more seasoned practitioner, usually there either is or isn't a willingness to adapt, or kind of just dig into the new organization's mission, vision, values. And if they don't do that, they probably will be short timers there, would be my guess. But it's very rewarding when someone does make that transition, because wow, you've got all that wisdom and experience now, kind of running in your model. So it's fun. And then the younger, or the more less experienced, we've had fantastic practitioners that went on to become great practitioners, who started in like accounts payable, like putting invoices in, and just because they wanted a summer internship, and then they finished their undergrad, and then they said, I'm going to school, and then they came back and did a residency, and now they're like flourishing CPOs. It's like, wow, that's pretty cool too. So both
Very
ways.
good.
Yeah.
Very good. Here's a little, maybe a touchy situation. Shauna asked, how do you reward the A players that go above and beyond and not have it seem like favoritism to the other staff members? But also with that, and with that question itself, also, how do you encourage all the staff to step up like those A players to get more involved?
I think clearly defining what going above and beyond means.
Okay.
I think that sometimes it's subjective. It's more about attitude and willingness, and not necessarily an objective criteria. Somebody staying late, somebody, I can think of many examples, and I won't go into all the stories that I have, but a lot. So I think really defining for yourself as a leader, and yourself as an employee, what does that mean? What does going above and beyond mean? So I think that so it doesn't necessarily feel arbitrary, but what does that mean? And then what is it that may look as favoritism? Is it that you take them to lunch? Is it that you have a personal relationship with them? Is it that they get more time off? Like, what is it that is considered favoritism that people may, and oftentimes it's, again, more subjective. It's more that you bring them into conversations, that you help them, they help you make decisions. So I think really defining that, and then making it less arbitrary and more clear and transparent.
Yeah.
Very good.
I would totally agree with that. Oftentimes the perception isn't what it seems, and it's too much about certain personalities would be protecting what they have and talking about what they don't have, or that someone else is getting, and so the gap, I want to say, is not nearly as wide as what usually someone thinks it is, and they just don't have all the information. And you can't, I mean, this is why you have repeatable, consistent employment agreements, and this is why you have similar compensation structures and things like that, so that when these issues come up and someone brings them forward, you're able to talk about them in a defined way, and hopefully handle it from there.
Very good. And encouraging those other employees who are not pushing up, how can we encourage them? That's a sign of a good manager, of a good be able to
Mhm.
do that. Timothy says it was mentioned earlier that many employers are having difficult times hiring good candidates. Now, is this the challenge of lack of those with soft skills and the work culture compatibility, or is it the lack of certified individuals, of competent certified individuals? I add that in.
I
What are some
love
of the
that they,
biggest problems you're seeing? Yeah.
yeah, I love that they brought up soft skills, because I think that we often talk about technical and, the hard skills. Can you do this? But those soft skills are so very important. And there is a lot of training on that, especially if you have very technical people that are, and I'm thinking about this right now just from a administrative point of view. Like, I may have some really great billers and they're really good at getting claims paid, but they will bite the head off of a clinician that walks in their door. Um,
Yep.
I, I'm just being real, okay?
It's true. It's
And
true.
I actually had a clinician call me one time from a client and said, the biller is out to get me and I don't know what to do about it. And so I said, transparent conversation is the best that you can have. And I would have one of the owners there with you and to say, hey, I really want to make this work. But sorry, I got off on that, but soft skills are so important. And when you recognize that people have a difficulty with them, support them in that and provide outside training, provide coaching, um, because it goes downhill quickly and it can become very toxic, if that doesn't happen. So Jeff, I'll let you maybe answer the real question that was there, but I just,
Oh, yeah. Well, I think like the I think NCOPE right now is working towards producing another workforce demand study, which will hopefully
Mhm.
continue to update the insights around what we have and what we don't have. I think as a profession, we always hear, um, we need more qualified people. We need more qualified people, and then maybe I would submit maybe that from the school side, we all do. We have an awareness issue. We need to attract more people into the seats in the schools, and then maybe we would need 20 schools versus 15, right? Um, but I think so. I think it's a bit of a mix, because I think even culturally right now you've got a voice track out there that people don't want to work, and I think we can, that's not a debate for this show, but I think there are people that want to work, and I think there are people that don't want to work, and I think that was true in 1996. When I got a job as a technician at a place that wasn't hiring, but I figured it out, right? And so I think we have to, potentially get back to honing in on, this is a healthcare career. Our time isn't always our own, and I think that there's culturally great things, great topics that we've come of age on that we should have, and we're addressing and we're tackling out there, as far as work life and mental support and time off, and these things are all very, very important. But we also, I think, have to be training, and this needs to be reinforced during residencies, right? Is your time really isn't yours. At least maybe it isn't for the first couple years, I would say. And then you can work yourself into a role, maybe that isn't as all giving of your time. But my word, clinically, you are really you have to dive in and be 100% committed to mastering you. I would say, your skills, and being successful in the healthcare profession. So, and then I think if you want to back off ambition or go into a different lane within O&P, that's great. You'll be really well served for having done that. But when we run into someone who, quote unquote, doesn't want to work or isn't as motivated, I think those are opportunities for us to engage with those folks and pull them up, raise them up, spend time in the schools motivating people. And you know the schools should be also being very realistic about what's expected in a job day in an OMP office, because it's dynamic, and we all know your dance card doesn't look at the end of the day like it looked at 8 o'clock or 7:30. It always changes, and that's the one thing we can guarantee you.
How very true, and they'll learn that during their residencies. So one of the things I have the honor of speaking at each one of those 15 master programs, and one of the things I do discuss as they're getting ready for their residencies and for their jobs, from their point of view, interview process, and what are some of the best techniques for interview. So Tony asked the question: what are some of the best practices for interviews to ensure a good hire from those who are hiring?
Jeff, I'll let you take
You
that one.
want to tackle?
No, because I only typically hire admin people, so
Yeah.
I can tackle it from that point of view. But I think they're really asking for
Yeah.
residents and
So
measurements.
yeah, so I don't have obviously access to this in front of me, but we had gone through several iterations of interview questions and flows, and be very careful. There's questions you can't ask, and I think that's important to know. If you haven't read on that, make sure you're up to speed on questions that you can and can't ask, and there are questions that you can't ask also. I just want to reiterate that, because there were questions there. Those questions were on the list years ago, and those questions probably led to people being in work situations that also weren't fair. So we totally respect that certain things shouldn't be asked during an interview, but again, for us, it was always understanding, and again, to highlight a couple of things, but just how did the person get interested in the profession? I think everybody likes to ask that, and hopefully from these questions, asking open-ended questions, you can solicit how people feel about clinical care, how they got into it, what they hope to get out of it, why are they interested in your practice, right? And I think then also setting forth, like, well, if you come to work at X organization, this is what you can expect in a day at this practice, and try to describe that for people. Obviously, if they're there for the interview, hopefully they're staying for the day, and they can, or if they pass the phone interview, right, we would do somewhat of a initial phone interview to just kind of understand if we were interested in those folks. But I also think being clear to them that they would be cross-trained to some degree. This was another very good indicator as to people's commitment and dedication and interest in the role. Is, we would say, I think Leslie mentioned this earlier, part of our onboarding was for you to be at the front desk for whether that's a week or 2 weeks, and be at the front desk in a primary role, which is scary. It's super scary, but it doesn't mean shadowing for 13 days and then the 14th day you take a phone call. It means by maybe the 5th or 6th day, you're kind of primary and the patient care coordinator. So sorry to go deep on that example, but again, people's reactions to that, if that can be met with like, hey, I can't wait. How else would I do my job as a practitioner if I didn't know what my colleague goes through? Versus, really, why do you do that? So, I would counsel you to really understand your organization and make sure that there's people part of the interview that you can kind of balance the questions, and have a plan for asking the questions, and then fielding questions back. And then also, just, we found too with interviewing, that has changed through the years, and sometimes it feels like you almost have to tutor a little bit during an interview, or you have to maybe help the candidate even field the offer or receive the offer, as far as just educating them as to procedures and things like that around what's professional and what's not when you're concluding an interview. And we looked for thank you notes. Not many people write a hard thank you note, but we certainly look for an email, those types of things. So it's a culmination of mostly being in touch with your organization, and is that person responding in a way that you feel like, one, they meet the competency of being a clinician, but then how are they going to fit chemistry wise?
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much. Now, we are coming up to the close of our session. I want to extend a huge, huge special thank you to our experts, Jeff and Leslie, today for sharing their expertise with us. I also want to thank, seriously, all of you, all of the participants, all of the attendees in this discussion. We wouldn't be doing it without you. Now, a link to the quiz for the continuing education credit will be in the chat. And this Pop Talk, as I mentioned before, is one of the series of 3. The final session will be on March 27th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that is Power of Partnership, Multi-Generational Pop Teams. Going to be very interesting. We have a great person on that one as well. There's a link in the chat to register, and we hope you'll join us and invite other colleagues so they can all listen to it as well and join us. Now, if you missed last week's Pop Talk, because we did have one last week as well, and that was titled Tapping into Talent, you can find it in the continuing education section on ABC's website. Our website is abcop.org. Very simple, abcop.org. We thank Jeff and Leslie. We thank all of you for attending, and we hope you just have a wonderful day. Thank you again.